This is the way. From the Mandalorian, this is the way. That's all I have for an introduction.
That's a great
People are gonna,
introduction.
but people are gonna be like, man, these introductions suck. We're not gonna listen to the rest of the episode.
No. That's
Right?
the
So
reason why it's so good is because it does
we,
suck. People are like, wait,
gotta,
if it sucks this bad, it can only get better from here
that's
on
true.
out.
That is really, really true. I mean, I was laying in bed, was it Thursday night? And I was like, man, I wonder what introduction Brian's gonna make for this one. The obstacle is the way, because we're reviewing Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way. And I was like, this is the way. This is the way. And I was like, Mandalorian, that's our introduction.
I love it. Let's get it. Of course, we are reading "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday. If you've
I got
listened
my
to
copy right here.
any of our other episodes, so you can show us you're not holding it up with your mic today.
Just a bowl today. A bowl is holding up my microphone.
A bowl. I love The Mandalorian though. This is the way,
Yeah, it's a
and
great series.
I have not watched the newest series. I think what is it on season 4 or is it season 5? I
Oh,
can't remember.
I thought it was season three, but I'm not too
Maybe it
sure.
is season 3. I just finished Pluribus on
Okay.
Apple, and I just finished Silo. Both of those have 2 seasons, and
Season
both of
one or
those
season one or
b-
season two on Silo.
2 seasons on Silo. So I watched both of them. Finished
Got
that.
it.
Really good. But I have
Yep.
not watched the new Mandalorian season. I did watch Andor. Have you watched Andor at all?
Yeah, me and Soren watched like maybe the first few episodes over the summertime, but we never finished it, I don't think. So it
So
might have been before we finished it.
Andor has a lot of political drama.
Mm-hmm.
So it may go over the head of somebody who's under 16.
Could, yeah.
So, and not Soren's super smart, right? But it might just go over his head because there's
Yeah.
a lot of intricacy in Andor that
Go over my
he
head
wouldn't
too.
necessarily appreciate. You're so funny. So let's talk about the obstacles the way. Oh, first we have to talk about cigars. You're right.
That's right.
So
You
I
go
am
first. You go
smoking
first.
a Camacho
Hmm.
Coyolar.
Okay.
So I call it a Camacho Black. But
Okay.
you smoked your Camacho, was it last week or the week before? Or I can't remember
Yeah.
which episode it was, but I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I have a Camacho that's different from the Camacho that I smoked several episodes ago, and it was in my humidor, so I'm like, oh, I'll grab that. It'd be interesting to talk about. It's good. Evidently, it's a Honduran cigar, a Honduran Puro, and it tastes nice. Yeah, it's a great cigar. I
Nice.
got it for probably $4, $5 online. So anyway, what are you smoking today?
I'm smoking a Alec Bradley Magic Toast.
Magic Toast. You talked about that a
Um,
couple weeks ago.
this is probably one of my favorite cigars, but I have like a limit on how much I'd like to spend on cigars, and I think this one was like €9 or something, which can be a little over $10. So
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
such a good cigar. Like it's stronger for me. I don't tend to smoke like super strong cigars, but Alec Bradley has a lot. I like the Magic Toast. It's smooth. I feel like it's been in my humidor for probably 4 or 5 weeks. I think it's perfect to smoke today. And since we've been doing this like the last couple of weeks, I know that I won't get too lightheaded if I smoke a stronger cigar. So I'm
Right.
going with the Magic Toast today.
Yeah, I think I've smoked 3. I think this is my third this week. I think I smoked one on like Tuesday, one on like Thursday, maybe, or Friday. I can't remember. So I think this is my third this week. But you're going to have cigars that are like that where you just love them. So I really like Perdomo. Have you heard of Perdomo before?
No, huh?
I remember buying the Perdomo 30th. He has his newest Perdomo Legacy, which I have not tried yet. Super good cigar, supposedly, according to the ratings. But
Mm.
Perdomo 30th came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I went to a cigar shop. I haven't seen it, haven't bought it anywhere, and I saw it there for $18. And I was like,
For one stick, right?
for one stick, yeah, for the
Okay.
Perdomo 30th, man. It was a massive stick. And I was like, I've really been wanting to try that for a long time. So I bought it, went home, smoked it. It was literally one of the best cigars that I've ever had in my entire life. So I was like, oh, every now and again, like a once in a while stick that you're going to
Yeah.
have, spending $18. Okay. If you're just going to smoke something, like a weekly cigar, $3 is good,
Yeah,
but and every now and again, so we need to buy some Perdomo Legacies because I have not had that one yet, and smoke them together and talk about it while we're talking about whatever book or whatever topic we're
that sounds good to
discussing that
me.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully sooner than later.
So obstacles the way. Wow, so much to say about this book. My first question to you is I read it through twice and then I skimmed it once. I know that you have read it several times, and the first time that you read it was what, 5 or 6 years ago? What is
Yep.
your take back after reading it through the first time, which was 6 years ago or
Hmm.
whatever?
Yep.
And then how many times have you read it through since then? Is this the first time you picked it up in 6 years? And how many times did you read it through this time? And then did you get anything out of it this time? Just surfacey? So think 50,000 feet up above the book. What did you pick up from the book reading it through this time versus the first time that you read? Because I don't have that comparison. Like, this is the first time that I've read it. So I'm only getting the initial pieces of wisdom that I've picked up from it by reading it through this first time. But I'm curious your response.
I had a hard time connecting to this book, to be honest with you. Like I did not enjoy it as much as I thought that I was going to enjoy it because I had a hard time getting into it. So I read through it one time. Uh, I finished it, I think, on Monday. And after reading Wisdom Takes Work, I connected to Wisdom Takes Work so much that when I got this book, I could tell that it was Ryan Holiday's first book that he had written. That was a Stoic. It had the basis of Stoicism. So I had a hard time connecting to it, and I finished it. I started Ego is the Enemy, I think, on Thursday or a couple of nights ago, and even that book is, in my opinion, written a lot better than this book. I felt like with this book, he was all over the place about the 3 points of perspective, action, and will that are the three main parts of this book. And I just felt like he did not nail down what perspective, action, and will was in each of those sections. So I didn't connect to it as best as I thought I was going to connect to it. When I read it 6 or 7 years ago, like I had an obstacle in my way that I was trying to get overcome, and so I saw it from that perspective. But now, 6, 7 years later, I don't have like this major, I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but I don't have this major life altering obstacle in my way that I need to learn how to overcome. So I guess that would be my reaction to this book the past couple of days.
So if you go on Goodreads, there's some pretty harsh criticisms of this book.
Right?
And I understand the criticism. So the criticisms are A, Ryan Holiday didn't start with books on Stoicism. So he started with books on advertising, books on marketing. So before he got into Stoicism, he did brand management for American Apparel, which is a large clothing company. And he ran lots of ads and controversial media marketing.
Hmm.
So, for example, he would use adult film stars in his ads. He would use teenagers that were scantily clad in his ads. He would do stuff like promote something on a billboard and then purposely degrade it with graffiti, writing very offensive stuff on that billboard with graffiti in order to gain attention. So he did lots of controversy. He would pay famous people to tweet negative comments about the product that he was trying to promote in an effort to create controversy. So, and I don't know off the top of my head, can't remember which celebrities were paid, but let's say that it's Brad Pitt, right?
Right.
Well, it wasn't Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt, who has X number of followers on X or on social media, tweets, "This is the worst pair of jeans that I've ever worn in my life. I can't believe that American Apparel would put out such a crappy product." I don't know that's what was said. It wasn't
Right.
even necessarily about American Apparel. And then Ryan Holiday would take that tweet and would push it out to the masses because it's under the concept of no news. What is it? Any news is good news, or all all eyes are good eye, whatever that phrase is, right? And
Right.
he would use that and then promote the heck out of his product.
Hmm.
So he had some very controversial methods of advertising products for people that he was working for. He did mentor underneath Robert Greene, who
Hmm.
wrote the book, The 48 Laws of Power. Have you read that book?
I have not read that book. I think it's pretty thick, right? Like that's a big book. I think it's pretty meaty,
So
right?
I think it's maybe 250, 300 pages. So I don't think it's that big. I read it, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and a lot of people don't like that book.
Okay.
The reason that people don't like the 48 Laws of Power is because of the truths that it presents.
Hmm.
It presents stuff that I learned. We've talked about me starting my business, and one thing that I did not realize is how much people, for example, will take advantage of you if they can.
Hmm.
So I was in advertising, and I would go into a business and they would say stuff, "Oh, this is $100 a month for this ad." Great. Yeah, put it in. We can figure out the payment details later. And I would be like, "Yes, this is a sale. This is awesome." And
Hmm.
so I would do up their ad, I'd run it, and then I come back and say, "Okay, this is your ad. It's the first week. It's going to be X number of dollars for X number of weeks, all of that." And they'd be like, "Hey, do you mind coming back next week?" Literally, people would do this to me. "Hey, do you mind coming back next week and bring it in? Like, I have a customer here. I'm not
Right.
going to have a chance to deal with this." I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, me being the thoughtful, considerate person that I like to
Yep.
think of myself as,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would be like, "Oh yeah, sure," and then I would come back next week, and they'd have another excuse, and then
So
they'd have another excuse. They
so they
would
give you two,
never pay.
yeah, like 2 free weeks of advertisement, basically,
Yeah,
right? Hmm.
that scenario happens so many times. Or people would be like, I even had one guy who signed the contract, and it was the contract. This is in like 2010 or something like that. So I mean, the contract was for $600 to $1,000. I can't remember the exact numbers. He signed the contract and then just never paid it. I ran his ad for like 6 weeks, and he's just like, "Oh, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later." Never paid. So I was like, "Look, dude, you got to pay." He's like,
Hmm.
"Sue me. If you want this money, sue me."
Wow.
And I was like, so anyway, point being, 48 Laws of Power talks about stuff like that,
Okay.
where you really have to be careful trusting people. People are going to take advantage of you in specific ways. If somebody, for example, if you go into a car dealership and the salesman looks at you and thinks sucker because you're wearing a flashy, gaudy watch, you
Right.
have on cheap, expensive clothes, you know what I'm talking about,
Right.
and you're carrying a floozy on your arm, where they're going to be like, "Oh, this guy's trying to impress. I'm going to sell this guy an X vehicle, whatever it may be, and I'm going to sell it for 15,000 over invoice
Hmm.
because I know that I can get him."
Right.
And that guy will end up paying $15,000 over invoice, when the next guy who comes in just looks like a regular, Joe Blow type of person, and he negotiates his way. He gets the same car for $18,000 less than the guy who just came in before bought it for.
Right. Right.
So that book talks about being the salesman and recognize where you can make money off of things like that. Like, was it wrong for that salesman to make a judgment call and to say, "Oh, I can make $15,000 off of this guy because he obviously is ready to be taken advantage of"? Is it
Hmm.
wrong to take advantage of him in that way? So that's what the book deals with. It deals with those gray areas of, yeah, like it's not wrong, but it's also like you're taking advantage of somebody. But if
Hmm.
a person's willing to be taken advantage of, I mean, technically the market rate's the market rate. So if they're willing to pay $15,000 more for a car, why would I not sell the car for $15,000 more? Like, I'm
Hmm.
literally taking advantage of my employer if I don't sell it to him for $15,000 more. Now, granted, 5,000 of that comes into my pocket in the form of a commission, but so it deals with those gray areas. That's the background that Ryan Holiday comes from. He
Hmm.
comes from Robert Greene, who sees the world as it is, who sees the fact that people are going to take advantage of you in any way that they can. And in some ways, although I don't like to say it, we need to take advantage of other people if they're willing to pay. Like that's capitalism. And so
Right.
people are uncomfortable with that.
Right.
People are uncomfortable with the fact that you can make more money off of some people than others.
Hmm.
And so you have to get comfortable with the fact that people need to be able to pay what they want for the product that they desire in the moment.
Right.
That's what the 48 Laws of Power deals with. It's uncomfortable topics about taking advantage of people where they want to be taken advantage of.
Mm.
So not in a dirty dealing way, but in a, hey, matter of fact way.
Right.
I say all of this, that is Ryan Holiday's background. Like if he's mentoring underneath Robert Greene, this is the type of stuff that he's hearing. So when people criticize this book, they point out he's written several books before this on media marketing.
Right.
They say stuff like, well, this feels like he's taken advantage of an opportunity. There were no other modern Stoic books on the market. He finds this interest and he's like, oh, there are no other Stoic books on the market right now. Well, I know a little bit about this. Let's write a book and see if it resonates with the masses. Obviously it did,
Yeah.
but a lot of people complain. This is just surface information. And it's not information that you can't find in Meditations or any of the works by Seneca or Epictetus, or you can go read those books and get the exact same things as what you get here. So why are you paying for this? And why should Ryan Holiday write a book on Stoicism, make millions of dollars off of this book, when we can literally get the same information from other books that have already been written? That's a lot of people's complaint about this book.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's very upfront. He's like, if you want to know about Stoics and what they say, go read their information. But I wrote this book with the intentions of giving you examples of history, and there's no other book like that. He also talks about go find your niche. If somebody or niche, if somebody's already written this type of book, then I don't need to write it. But that's the fact. Nobody's written a book like this,
Right.
so I'm going to write that book. And I mean, I have no problem with Ryan Holiday writing this book. Like I didn't connect with the book. I'm not saying it was a bad book and that there was bad information or false information inside the book. I just didn't connect with it. I guess I didn't do enough thinking on my own to connect with this book like I did Wisdom Takes Work, or even when we read Ego is the Enemy Next. Like I connect with that book a lot more because I have a big fat ego and there's some things in there that's quite convicting. So let's talk about the first question that you wrote down in your notes. You said that Marcus Aurelius wrote a formula for thriving, not just in spite of what happens, but because of it. That was from the introduction, right? That's not a chapter in the book. That was actually from his like introduction to the book.
I read this book through the first time, and the first time that I read through it, it was good. And I was actually thankful because we recorded a different podcast last week and we talked about a different topic that went absolutely crazy. And
Wow.
I can't wait. I have not edited that episode yet. I'm super excited
Yeah.
to edit that episode because it was
I was,
really good.
man, I was still talking about what you were talking about with Katie like on Wednesday. Like I was still talking about, hey, do you know? Anyway, go listen to the podcast.
So, but I was glad that I had the extra week
Hmm.
because I got a lot out of it the first time. And man, I went through and I underlined like a ton. And then I went through it. I skimmed it in preparation for last Saturday's podcast episode recording. And then you're like, hey, I'm not quite finished. Can we postpone it a week? Let's talk about something else. Sure. Like that was not a problem. I'm glad that happened because I went through it the second time and I got so much more of it the second time personally. Now, I do believe that we can read books and get things out of them based on the stage in life that we're at. So you may not be at the obstacles the way stage in your life. You may be at the ego is the enemy stage.
Yeah.
I am definitely at the obstacles the way stage.
Good.
And the reason is because of that statement. So he wrote a formula for thriving, not just in spite of whatever happens, but because of it. And I looked at my obstacles, and one of the biggest epiphanies that I learned is that other people don't create the obstacles that are in my way. I create the obstacles that are in my way.
Mm-hmm.
And the perspective that I take a lot of times is you are the problem. And it goes back to making your bed
Mm-hmm.
and wisdom takes work. where he talks about punching the bully in the nose.
Hmm.
And oftentimes I would perceive someone as setting an obstacle in my way, and I would say, you are a bully. And let's be honest, most of the time, 99.9% of the time, they are wrong for what they did. But the fact is, I was the one that made the obstacle of what the wrong thing that they did, whatever it may be. I
Mm.
was the one that made it an obstacle.
Mm.
So you also make the statement that, and I can't find it here, but if someone, and you know the phrase off the top of your head, if someone harms you, if you don't feel harmed, then you've not been harmed,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Yep.
So that's another Marcus Aurelius statement.
Right.
So the obstacle is in my way because I perceive it as an obstacle. And that's the beauty of this book and reading it through the second time.
Mm.
So I was going to say, for anybody who looks at this book and it's like, oh, it's surfacey, or oh, like there's nothing in it other than just general principles. Like I didn't learn anything from it. I'm going to
Right.
say, if you didn't get anything from it the first time, read it through a second time. You didn't get anything from it the second time, read it through a third time, read
Yeah.
it through a fourth time, because the principles that are in this, as clunky as they may be, as you pointed out, since this is Ryan Holiday's first Stoic work,
Hmm.
the reality is they're deep if you apply them to your life. So I have had lots of obstacles in my life. And the hard part for me is realizing that the only reason that I've had lots of obstacles in my life is because I perceive them as obstacles.
Mm.
I could relive my life again, have those same quote unquote obstacles pop up in my life, and they're not obstacles. You know why? Because they don't matter. Because
Right.
I'm the one who chose to be harmed in that
Hmm.
situation.
Hmm.
Instead of looking at this interesting situation, whatever it may be, and be like, oh, well, that's interesting. I guess I need to do B rather than going down path A, because you are choosing to do it in a different way than the way that I want initially. And rather than, a lot of times I would look at the obstacle and I would attack the obstacle
Hmm.
with all of my force and with all of my passion. When in reality, if I just backed up a little bit and looked around the obstacle that
Hmm.
is perceived to be in my way, well, he tells a story about a king, and I think this is actually in Wisdom Takes Work, but a king who set up an obstacle in his villagers' way to see what they would do with it.
Hmm.
And all the villagers went around it. They cursed the king. This is an obstacle that's right in our way. Well, there was the one guy who went into the woods and picked up a stick that used it as a lever and just moved it out of the way. And then underneath, the king had left a purse with a note that said something about, obstacles are there to be moved or something. When if I had not been so focused on that obstacle and I had backed up and I had looked at the entire situation and realized, if I just go all at this obstacle with all of my strength, shove it, ram my shoulder into it, do everything that I can to push against it, rather than backing off and saying, oh, there's a stick right there that I can use as a lever. Let me
Hmm.
stick it underneath it and just roll it out of the way. So much easier, and my life would have been easier if
Hmm.
I'd have just looked for the stick. Like if I
Hmm.
had just
Yeah.
used the lever to push it out of the way, it wouldn't have been a big deal at all. And in fact, the fact that I attacked this obstacle set up additional obstacles in my future down the trail because I attacked this obstacle. And
Hmm.
people are like, oh, he attacks obstacles with a fury. Well, don't, and so other things were set in my way, or I had already started out with that perspective. So anytime a similar obstacle was set in my path, then I think, oh, I got to attack this obstacle and punch it in the nose. When in reality, there are different paths, man. There are so many different ways that we can look at issues that pop up in
Hmm.
our life. We don't have to look at this. And you know what? Maybe rather than looking at it as an obstacle, I can look at it as a jumping off point.
Hmm.
I can look at it as something that I can climb on top of and leap to new heights in my life. So
Hmm.
the first point, this book was, of course, broken down into three sections. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. The first
Good.
one is perception, like how we perceive the obstacles in my life. And I realized that I was perceiving obstacles as something to be punched in the nose,
Hmm.
when in reality, that's not what we need to do at all. We need to look at the obstacle as how can this benefit and how can I take this obstacle from something that's hindering me from growth in my life and actually change the obstacle itself to something that can lead me onto something better.
Hmm.
That's kind of the initial response that I got from the first section.
That's amazing, man. Like the formula, like Marcus Aurelius says, or I don't know if it's Marcus Aurelius or maybe Ryan Holiday or whoever, but that which impedes us empowers us, or that which impedes us can empower us. And the whole thing about this book, Obstacle is the Way, is that all the obstacles that you have in your life, it gives you an opportunity to practice the virtues. And that's the whole point of Stoicism. And you can practice the virtue of patience going through an obstacle. You can practice the virtue of courage or of humility. And, I think it's not like the way you explain, like how you attack obstacles and like how maybe you've done the right thing or the wrong thing when you've approached obstacles is that every normal person is going to see obstacles in that way. The difference is not the people who have those obstacles, is about those who learn how to respond to them in the correct way. And I think what you
Right.
just said was you're now learning, or you've learned how to respond to those obstacles that are put in your way. And I think that that is like, I was thinking this week, I was like, I wonder what you think of Stoicism now, because just to see you get like a light or a fire put in you about seeing your life through the eyes of Stoicism, like it just makes me really happy to hear you say that, and to hear you be passionate about how you now can see in the past how you may have or may not have approached um, obstacles in the right way. I think just one more comment. I think that most of the obstacles that we have today are more internal than external. Like you read like the Stoics talk about having to walk long distances for a book, or they grew up in poverty. I mean, we talk about Abraham Lincoln growing up in poverty, and like his mom and his sister all dying before the age of 8, and his dad basically left him to himself at 8 years old. And we see him be like a big stoic, but now we may not have those type of problems, but we have um, professional difficulties, we have learned helplessness, and those are our obstacles, more of an internal how I view the world, as opposed to like literal external obstacles to overcome, like poverty. So, like I said, it's about our perception, how we see those obstacles, and yeah, I thank you for sharing that.
Everything that I wrote down after you heard what I just said makes sense. So Marcus Aurelius said, choose the phrase, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed.
Right,
Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been.
right.
Like you can read that the first time, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a cool man. That's an
Yeah.
awesome stoicism phrase. Yeah,
Let's put that on the
stoicism.
wall. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, put it right there.
yeah.
But in reality, when you apply it to your life, you're like, oh yeah, like that totally makes sense. Or I would say there's no good or bad without us. There's only perception. There's the event itself, the problem that we perceive, and the story we tell ourselves about what it
Yeah,
means.
right.
It's like, what? Or getting upset doesn't change the obstacle. Like some of these. So when you can break apart something or look at it from some new angle, it loses its power over you. So like I wrote down all this stuff. We
Mm.
often choose the ominous explanation over the simple one to our own detriment. What?
In the chapter where he talks about we often choose the ominous explanation over the simple one to our detriment. He also talks about how we retain the ability to inject a good story into any situation, and he goes on to talk about it's our choice whether we put I in front of something. We put I in front of the obstacle. Like for
Yes,
instance,
yes.
like I am harmed by this. I'm the one who is being affected by this decision, and uh, it's just, I guess that's the pride in us. That's the ego. That's our that's our self-centeredness that can, like it goes back to our obstacles are internal. Most of the time are internal, not external. And it's funny because Socrates gave the example that he had a mean, nagging wife, so therefore he has the opportunity to practice
Yes.
stoicism.
I wrote
And
a little smiley face right beside
yeah,
that in the
like
book. Literally, a
like
little smiley face.
when you're talking about like the people that you like, for instance, were feeling like they were doing this to you on purpose. That's what I thought about Socrates saying that he had a mean, nagging wife, so now I can have opportunity to practice stoicism. So, but man, that's the purpose of reading though. Like, if you had not read this book, then maybe you would not have gotten that opportunity for to enhance your job and to enhance your career. And it kind of goes back to again Ryan Holiday's book of Wisdom Takes Work, that reading is one of those is a secret to having a great life. And if we're open to what we read and apply that to our life, then we grow. So, man, it's just massive to hear you grow in that way because I know that you're very stubborn and you're very
Yeah.
hard-headed. This is the way
Yep.
you are. And but that gives you so many strengths. And I know last week or 2 weeks ago you're talking about how that is actually a bad thing. But yeah, it could be bad, but in so many other ways it's good. But it's cool to hear you like take good out of the situation and I guess not have that pride and ego to message first, because we want to be served, like we want to be the one who's messaged. But sometimes it takes us a bit of humility just to reach out first. So that's cool, man.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to choose not to be harmed.
Hmm.
Like, that's such a simple concept, but there are so many people, myself, number
Right,
one included.
right.
I have been harmed.
Hmm.
I am the victim.
Right.
And it's so easy for me. Something else that he talks about in this book, it's something that I wrote down, was I need to observe myself as if I am someone else who's giving me
Hmm.
advice and guidance on how I need to proceed in a situation.
Right.
And I like to think that I can look at other people's situations and I can objectively break down what they need to do. And I can look at them and say, bruh, like,
Mm.
you're being a victim here.
Right.
Like, this dude didn't do anything to you. Like, sure, I can understand how you're perceiving it that way. Just move on. Like, literally, it doesn't matter. Like,
Mhm.
move on. Go around the obstacle.
Right.
When I'm not willing to do that to myself, I'm not willing to objectively break down the obstacles that I have in my way and say, Brian, you're being a little bee. You need to stop crying about whatever this is
Right.
and find a way around it. Use that obstacle as a way to leap you into success in another area of your life. And
Right.
in reality, with this one specific situation, let's say that I don't get to go to the training. Let's say that I don't get that certification. Have I been harmed? No. Is it going to affect me in any other area of my life? No, because I have so many opportunities available to me. But
Mhm.
if I sit there and if I focus on this one single opportunity and I look at it so hard and I get so angry,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
my obstacle. Well, then I'm missing all of these obstacles or all of these opportunities that are around me.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, this obstacle is in my way, and this person that I'm perceiving as being ominous, as not liking me or not wanting to give me opportunity, maybe that is true. But maybe if that is true, their obstacle is opening up other opportunities that
Yep.
are around me that I'm missing because I'm so laser focused on this one obstacle that I can't get around.
Yeah.
So understanding that has opened up so much
Hmm.
because there are jobs that I'm not invited to do, there are situations that I'm not invited in, there are things that I'm not asked to participate in. And I can look at that and I can be like, holy cow, I have been harmed.
Right.
When in reality, if I look at my life objectively, I'm like, holy cow, I've had it so good. I've
Hmm.
been interpreting for 25 3 years now. And if I look back on the 23 years of interpreting, I've always had success in those 23 years, regardless of these obstacles that I view myself as being harmed,
Hmm.
regardless of them. So, why did I take so much time and energy attacking the obstacles that I viewed that were in my way when I could have just walked away and gone with the opportunities that were available to me? That after I punched the obstacle over and over again and it's not moving, okay, I'm so tired now. Well,
Right.
now I need to look for other. Oh, look, there's other opportunities. Well, I just wasted 6 months on this stupid obstacle.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm justified.
Hmm.
In my mind, it's like, oh, yeah, that person was 100% wrong. That person was 100% bully. And I'm going to use all of my energy to focus on this issue when now, not perfect, right? I'm still going to have obstacles and I'm going to focus way too much on.
Right.
I'm going to have things that upset me, things that hurt me, and I'm going to look at that and I'm going to get angry inside and I'm going to look at that. But if I can think in a stoicist mindset, then I can go through my hurt, go through my pain as quickly as possible, then move on.
Right.
Like, okay, this hurts. This does not feel good. Process that, think about it, talk it over, move on with my life. Like, don't focus on this single obstacle. And the last thing that I wrote down for this section of perceiving or perception,
Hmm.
problems are rarely as bad as we think.
Right.
Or rather, they are precisely as bad as we think.
Hmm.
And when I read that the first time, I was like, huh? So I read it again. Problems are rarely as bad as we think, or rather, they are precisely as bad
Right.
as we think. So if I want to be harmed, I have reason to be harmed.
Yeah.
I have reason to consider myself offended.
Hmm.
100%. Like, if anybody looked at the situation from my perspective, oh, yeah, I understand why you're hurt because of that.
Hmm.
But I can also choose to think of it in a different way.
Right.
I can also perceive it in a different light if I just lift my head up and look around. And in reality, even though I've had obstacles over my 23 years of interpreting, that's essentially what's happened anyway. I just wasted all this time on these obstacles when I didn't have to waste my time on these obstacles. I could have just backed off the situation and took advantage of the opportunities that were available to me because this obstacle really doesn't matter anyway. I'm going to be fine. I haven't been harmed.
Hmm.
That was my summary and what I learned from the first section of perception or perceiving.
Well, I mean, you didn't waste 23 years because I think that's the beauty of Stoicism. It you can pick up on it where you're currently at in life.
Yes.
You don't have
Yes.
to be like, oh man, I wasted 23 years because I was not exposed to the Stoic thinking. Like for instance, the Stoic phrase of what is up to us and what is not up to us. I think that is, I don't know who said that, but it's like you said, like if it was up to you, then you would punch it in the nose. Like you would try to bully your way um through a response to those people. But what is not up to us? Well, the person not texting back. That's not up to us. Like not getting the opportunity to get that certification. That's not up to us. But I think that's what Stoicism is trying to teach us is that we have the choice to respond in the right way, which leads us into the second part of this book is taking action. Like I think what's happening right now is like you've seen the obstacle, you've recognized it and you pointed it out, you've perceived it, you've looked at your specific situation, and then now I think you're realizing that if you take action, then the way that he describes it in this book, then those obstacles don't look so bad, if that makes sense. Like
Right.
I think you're starting to realize that there is now a response that you can have that is not necessarily like an internal response, but also an external way to respond to your obstacles. And um, the first thing that you wrote down was those who attack problems in life with the most initiative and energy usually win. And I don't know if it's the reason because of the obstacle is the way, but I have tattooed on my right arm opportunities are worth the sacrifice, so attack each day with hard work and enthusiasm. And that could have been a result of reading this book back 7 or 8 years ago, but I think that you have this obstacle. Those who attack it with energy are going to overcome those obstacles. I think he gave an illustration of Teddy Roosevelt. In fact, I don't think it was an illustration. I think it was the opening part to a chapter where he said, Roosevelt said, we must either wear out or rust out. My choice is to rust out. I don't know if you remember that part of that chapter, but um, in another book, Ryan Holiday describes Teddy Roosevelt, or maybe it was an Obstacle is the Way, but he talks about how Teddy Roosevelt had severe asthma. And his dad came to him and he's like, we're going to get over this obstacle of your severe asthma by you going upstairs. And he had built Teddy Roosevelt an indoor gym. So basically, he had worked out literally the asthma out of his body. And that's how he had attacked his obstacle. And so when he made this in this book, when he made the statement, we must either wear out or rust out, he chooses to wear out. That resonated with me. And it comes back to you didn't waste the 23 years. You now can start responding to your obstacles in the right way. And it's all about it's all about taking action, which is the second part of his book.
I wrote in my book that the past 23 years and the way that I've handled obstacles is not necessarily a negative thing because it's led me to this moment in time.
Hmm.
And I wrote down also that I could look at my past and I could look at the negative things that I've experienced in my life as negatives, as something that could be detrimental. Like maybe we were raised very sheltered. I could look at that as a negative.
Hmm.
And I could say, look at all the opportunities that I missed because I was raised sheltered. Or I can look at the fact that I was raised sheltered and I can look at my life now and I can realize, could my life be any better than it is right now?
Hmm.
Like literally, I look at my life and I'm very thankful for where I am right now. Like I live in a very nice house. I work a job that I love. I
Hmm.
get to podcast with my brother reading books that are literally changing my life.
Yeah.
I the only thing that maybe I could have better is I could have had more money. I mean, I don't know. But if I look at my life, I'm married to a beautiful woman who takes care of me. I have an amazing son. Like life is good.
Yeah.
And so all of the obstacles, I can complain about those, about how they should have been different. Or I can say, oh, okay, all the past in my life have led up to this moment, and I'm where I am right
Yeah.
now
That's right.
because of everything that's happened in my past. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah, no, I literally wrote in my journal this morning. There is a friend that I have who literally started from the bottom. Now he's here. Like he is building a multi-million dollar business. His goal is, I think, $50 million in the next decade of income. And I was sitting there earlier this week. I was, man, I don't have a business that's going to be bringing in $50 million. I don't have this social media following. I don't have this power. I don't have this impact, or I don't have this recognition. But then that's been bothering me for the past couple of nights, and then just sitting and thinking about how I'm going to respond to that. I wrote that my life, I'm thank goodness I don't have that power. Thank goodness I don't have all that money. Thank goodness I don't have all that prestige, because I don't think I could handle it. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
don't think that I could handle it in the right way. So I wrote
Yeah.
down my life is to just govern myself. Right now, that's what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And then I had also wrote a couple other things about Soren, and that the purpose of my life maybe isn't to reach my quote unquote goals, or to get the impact and power that I think I deserve, but maybe it's to help teach him how to not be a stoic, but how to respond to these obstacles or setbacks, so that when he's my age, he might be in a better position to attack opportunities with hard work and enthusiasm. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's not about like, I wish I had all this stuff, because if I did have all that money, power, I don't think I could handle it very well. Knowing who I am, and knowing maybe the little choices that I've had opportunity to make over the past couple of years, then maybe I would not be very good with all of that recognition, power, money, fame, if that makes sense. So
Right? No, 100%.
I think
And
that,
and it's okay.
right,
Like
it is
it's
okay.
okay that
It's
you're here for Soren.
right, but
That is a good enough life purpose. You know what I mean?
but I'm happy with that. You know what I mean? Like
Right?
I think,
Exactly.
but we're all trying to chase. I think we come to a point in life where we're just done chasing all that stuff, and we kind of start to understand the true meaning of life, which is working on yourself, investing in your family. It's not it's not what social media can paint for you or give you. Like it's not that. That doesn't bring happiness, which is actually
Right.
part of we won't talk about it right now, but it's part of the end of the book. He talks about what is happiness, and when you perceive your obstacles, when you take effort and action to get through your obstacles, then the result is, he talks about will, but it's more so the end result is true happiness. And just to hear you like resonate with the Stoic thought on how to overcome your obstacles, it's exciting to me because it's just another way that I can connect with you because I deeply believe in these responses from a Stoic perspective, and something that have not perfected, but it's something that I want to perfect over the next couple of years. Next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to have millions of dollars in the bank. Who wouldn't? Right?
Right.
But the amount of money that I do have in the bank is sufficient for me to have a happy lifestyle.
Right.
Like more than enough for me to
Right.
be happy right now. And if I'm not happy right now with the house that I live in and with the amount of money that I have in the bank and the family situation that I have, I'm also not going to be happy if I run a $50 million company and have
Right.
a million followers on social media. I'm
Hmm.
equally not going to be happy. So it's all about perspective. But
Hmm.
then once I perceive something differently than I have been in my life, and I understand that this obstacle is here, well, then I need to take action, like we've talked about. I need to
Right.
do something different. And he gives an example. I love the example of Teddy Roosevelt, but he gives an example that really resonated with me, and it was Z Murray versus United Fruit.
Right.
And that story was like, yes,
This is
because
you. This is you. This story is
100%.
100% you.
So there was a plot of land that this massive fruit company, which was United Fruit, I never heard of them, but I guess they were big back in the 1920s or something like that.
Okay.
And this small little farm setup run by a guy named Zamuri, they both wanted this plot of land. It was like 5,000 acres, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was, it was down in Panama or something like that, was that there were two farmers who claimed ownership of the land. And so, of course, the big company doing what they do, they spent all their money, sent lawyers down because they're both fighting over this
Mm-hmm.
5,000 acres of land that they want to grow fruit on. So they sent their lawyers to do all the research on who actually owns the land. That way we can buy the land from this person, and this land is going to be ours. And they spent millions of dollars on figuring out who was the owner of this land. When Zamuri saw the obstacle and he went, let me think of this a different way. You know what? I'll just pay both of them for the land. That way, there's no argument over who owns it.
Right.
So, Farmer A says he owns it. Farmer B says he owns it. Well, we know that one of them own it. So, if I buy it from both of them, okay, so one of them got lucky and got paid when they shouldn't have.
Right.
But in reality, now I own the land. And I didn't have to do all that research. Sure, I had to pay twice, but that's an easy solution around the obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at the obstacle and saying, is there another way for me to look at it? And let's take it back to my training.
Mm-hmm.
If I really want this training, if I really want this certification, I'm looking at it from one perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just sit there and stare at this obstacle from this one perspective, like United Fruit did.
Mm-hmm.
I could hire lawyers. I could spend all this money. I could punch the bully in the nose, right? All of that. Not that this person's being a bully, but I could do all of that. And I could sit there and stare at it, or I can take action and I can do something else. And I can look at it from a different perspective. And if this is something that I really want, Well, then you know what? I'm sure there are other avenues to that training and that certification other than the one that I'm seeing right in front of me.
Hmm.
There are other options out there that if it's that important to me to receive this certification and receive this training, I'm sure there are other grants out there.
Hmm.
There are other people that are offering access to this training in ways that I haven't even done the research for. Or maybe I'm wanting to go after this certification when in reality, if I just turn my head, oh, there are other certifications that could be just as helpful. Maybe it's not this one, but there's that one over there, and that one over there. Holy cow, it's even better than the one that I looked at here. So,
Hmm.
looking at a situation and maybe thinking, okay, I don't have to pursue it from this avenue, but I can take action and I can pursue something else to help my life be successful and pursue it in a different fashion.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I looked at it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, man, it's just, it's good just to hear you, speak of these things that you're going through because I think when you're honest and like these are things I've never heard from you before. Like we've been talking for years, but uh, it's just cool to see the growth. And it kind of goes back to, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? We talked about how growth starts with me. That was what you said, right? Growth starts with me. And just to hear you grow in this way, I think that's the whole purpose of this. So I'm encouraged by what you're learning. It's good because
Good. Yeah.
sometimes you worry. I know you're reading Ryan Holiday because you know that I like Ryan Holiday. And so I felt a little bit like, he's only reading Ryan Holiday because he knows that I like Ryan Holiday. And so I felt maybe a little bit like you were reading it out of obligation. And the fact that you were just gleaning so much from it, like, there that's the purpose of like self-development. And I think that's the aim of life. And we've talked about that in the past, but it's just cool to see you process it and talk about it, think about it, and discuss it here on the pod.
Well, I mean, we're talking about our happiness. Like you text me this morning, you love podcasting
Yeah, yeah. I've been thinking about it all
because,
week. Yeah.
like, sure, we have conversations, but if we're really honest with each other,
Hmm.
and podcasting forces that openness, it
Right.
forces us to think about problems differently. Because if I'm sitting on the back deck and we're smoking cigars together like we and talking on FaceTime like we have,
Hmm.
we're not going to dive as deeply into some of these issues, but because we're in a podcasting format, whether anybody's listening or not, we're still going to open up in a way and think about problems from a different perspective just because of the medium that we're talking over,
Hmm.
which makes me love podcasting as
Yeah.
well.
I'm just kind of going to go back and yeah, we'll talk about part three. Part three is the will. Will is our how we process our internal power on the problems that we have and give an agency to kind of like what you're talking about. You took agency to text your friend or your colleague about trying to get that certification, right? So that's he talks about will and but will for a Stoic or will for Ryan Holiday is quiet humility, resilience, flexibility. And I wrote down here it's fortitude and wisdom. It's the strength to endure, to derive meaning from the obstacles we simply cannot overcome. And the first thing that you wrote down is when you, like I told you, I wasn't really resonating with this book. And so when you wrote down your, I guess, outline for this book, it was able for me to put my thoughts together. But the first thing you wrote down was accept and don't complain about the cards that you were dealt. And you kind of already alluded to some of the cards that you have been dealt with being, raised sheltered. And I don't know if it was necessarily raised sheltered. It was like, I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing. But you've already talked about numerous obstacles that you've overcome and how your eyes are kind of being open to um, how to respond to those obstacles. And in this section, one of the things that stuck out to me was the path of least resistance is a terrible teacher. And when the swim team for Soren, it talks about how there's nothing good comes out of your comfort zone. and you got to be in a stage of discomfort in order for you
To grow.
to grow, right? And I think that that's where the will is not like um not necessarily like I will something, but it's more of like an acceptance. And it's an acceptance of like we accept the fact, or you accept the fact that maybe you haven't gotten this recognition with the certification that you're talking about, but now you've come to accept that that is what has happened. It's out of your control. Now you're going to respond to it in the right way. And he talks about the Stoic phrase for all this, and it's the art of acquiescence, meaning like we have this problem, but we can accept the problem, and we can choose how we perceive the problem and respond in the right way. And to me, when he talked about that, the art of acquiescence or the art of acceptance, um, it was instead of complaining about the obstacles that we have, it's accepting it and trying to become better despite the obstacles that are in our way. That's where my mind went when you had wrote that part down for accept and don't complain about the cards that you were dealt.
So this section, the will section, so perception, action, and will was the hardest for me to connect with.
Hmm.
But the word that I wrote at the beginning of that chapter when he talks about our will was our character.
Hmm.
So what's internal? Like how good of a person are we? Are we making the right decisions? Are we doing the right things? And the way that we can determine that we are acting with good character, or the way that we can determine if our will is appropriate, is in our daily actions and in our daily habits.
Hmm.
So he talks about setting things up, doing things in a rote way so that our character is predetermined. So, for example, I'm going to wake up in the morning, and we've talked about this. I'm going to go for a 2 mile ruck every single morning, not because it's necessarily good for me or the right thing to do, but because it sets me in a frame of mind that ensures that I'm going to have better character for the rest of the day. I'm going to set aside time to read good books because I know that good books are a way to set up my will so that I'm successful later in life.
Hmm.
So my will is my actions on a rote basis.
Hmm.
My will is my character in an everyday fashion. It's the things that I do in on a daily basis that ensure that I'm going to be successful.
Hmm.
It's coming downstairs, greeting my wife with a hug every single morning. It's greeting my son with either a good mood or b a really good mood, right?
Right.
It's eating a good healthy breakfast every morning and not shoving donuts in my mouth
Hmm.
because I know that if I have eggs and fruit and yogurt in the morning, that my health over time and over my life is going to turn out better.
Hmm.
That is my will. That is my character. And I wrote down if something bad happens to me, then I should feel great about it.
Hmm.
Because if it happened, then it was meant to happen. And I'm glad it did when it did. I am meant to make the best of it. And I can make the best of it when I'm in a good frame of mind,
Hmm.
when my mental health is good, when I'm going to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock every night. I'm getting up every morning at 5:30, 6 o'clock, starting my day by reading a book, not starting my day by picking up my phone and scrolling on Instagram for 45 minutes,
Hmm.
but getting up, rucking, reading a book, doing the things in life, having the will to know that these steps that I'm taking on a daily basis are ensuring that I'm going to be a success in life because I'm developing the right character within.
Hmm.
That's kind of how I took will. Will is not necessarily action because action means that I'm looking at an obstacle and I'm choosing to take a different path on that specific obstacle. Well, will takes it a step further than that when I don't necessarily have an obstacle in front of me, but I'm choosing to make good decisions with every single step in my life to ensure that my life overall is healthy
Mhm.
So, for instance, if I run every single morning, then I know whenever I'm approached by that obstacle of being robbed at gunpoint, well, then I'm going to be more healthy to be able to get away. Or we've all seen that reel or that short where the person is very unhealthy and they fall and they're pushing the little buggy with the baby inside, and the buggy starts to roll towards a busy highway,
Mhm.
and that person keeps falling because they're in such poor physical health condition
Right.
that they can't reach the buggy in time. Thankfully, a stranger saw what was happening and ran up and stopped the buggy with the baby inside before it was smashed into by a car.
Mhm.
But if that person had built their will, if they had built their character by eating healthy, by exercising, by doing the right things on a daily basis, well, when the time came, when there was an obstacle, their baby's in a stroller and it's rolling down the hill towards a busy highway, well, then they're ready for that obstacle because they built their character to the point to where they can face any obstacle that comes. So while action is doing something specific to an obstacle that I'm facing right now, will is ensuring that I'm taking the daily steps necessary in order to ensure that my life is going to be a success overall. That's kind of how I looked at the third section. Did that trigger anything, like any thoughts for you about how you read the third section as well?
Yeah, no, I wrote down Katie has her life, I guess, quote is from a Holocaust survivor who her name is Corrie Ten Boom. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep. Good book.
she was in concentration camps, I think 4 or 5 here in Germany. And Corrie Ten Boom has a quote. It says, "Happiness isn't something that depends on our surroundings, but it's something that we make inside ourselves." And that's Katie's like life quote because, you know, today's February 1st, so she woke up kind of not in the best condition as far as her emotions because this was the month that started the process of her mom dying, and she's extremely close with her mom. But she says, or she was extremely close, but she says that happiness isn't something that depends on whether my mom is here, or happiness doesn't depend on, I guess in my case, doesn't depend on the power that I think I should have or the money that I think I should have, but it's something that we make inside of ourselves. And I guess when I read the will part of this section, that's the phrase that kept popping into my head because we can't control the outside things that happen to us, but we can control how we respond to it. And uh, I think when you said that when you wake up in the morning, you can walk downstairs and you can greet your wife with kindness, or you can greet Eli with that kindness. And I think that's one of the things that makes us happy is how we treat other people or seeking happiness in other people. And knowing that as the father in the house or as the husband, that we can control how the rest of the day goes for our family is also
Yep.
really, really important to consider because if we wake up in a bad mood, then how we respond or the shortness of our responses or just the negativity that we have can also impact Soren, it can impact Katie. So um yeah, that's kind of like what I was thinking about, I guess,
Yeah. So
after
my
reading.
my character level can impact somebody else's happiness.
Right. That's true.
So the character level and the mood that I have can impact the day that Megan and Eli have.
Hmm.
So if I wake up with good character and I'm doing the things and I'm recognizing the steps that I need to take in order to live a happy and successful life, then that will influence the people that are around me in a positive or a negative way. And at the very end of the book, Ryan Holiday, of course, addressed this with Memento Mori, which is the whole Stoic philosophy with death in mind. And he used Montaigne as an example. He got very sick and he came to death's door and thankfully recovered from it and then had a complete different perspective on life. Not necessarily because he came to death's door, but because he realized at that point that we could die at any time. And I don't have to come up to death's door to realize that I could die tomorrow.
Hmm.
I can have that realization reading The Obstacle is the Way
Hmm.
to realize that what I'm doing now the character that I'm having now, the books that I'm reading, the people that I'm interacting with, the way that I'm handling obstacles, all of that needs to be from the perspective of I could die tomorrow. And if I died tomorrow, would I be happy with how I responded to this situation? I mean, there have been people who have passed away even recently. How do I think of them and their life? And are they after death? Would they, if they were still alive, would they look at my response to their death and be happy with the way that I'm thinking about them after death? And I have to think about that in my own life. The way that I treat people, the way that I respond to obstacles, and the people that I'm perceiving as putting these obstacles in my life. If I died tomorrow, how would they perceive me in my life?
Mm.
Would they perceive it as a success? Would they perceive it as something that Brian was a build up person? He had good character. He was dependable. He did the right thing. He was always willing to work with people. And I don't know that that's the case.
Mhm.
I don't know that there have been situations where I've had the character level to respond in a positive fashion. And so those people may not look at me and say, you know, I'm sorry that he died, but he didn't have that much of an influence over my life. Like he wasn't a very positive person,
Right.
or he looked at life negatively, whatever it may be. But keeping life in mind, understanding that my happiness and the actions that I take now could all end tomorrow, and understanding that realization means that the decisions that I make today influence how I'm viewed after my death.
Mhm.
And whether or not these decisions that I'm making today are they even important if I'm going to die tomorrow? Does it really matter that I'm not getting this certification when I'm passing away tomorrow anyway? Is in the full scheme of things and the view of life, or is it more important for me to focus on the here and now? And last night we played Small World together. It's a board game. And that's one of the goals that I talked about in our goals podcasting episode was I wanted to play a board game every week. I wanted to go on a date night with my wife every single month. Like those are things that I'm pursuing. Those are the things that make me happy. Those are the things that are going to be remembered after my death. Not whether or not I got the certification. In the end, nobody's really going to care about that. So it's prioritizing the things that are important and doing those things as a matter of will. Because in reality, the little things that we do on a daily basis are way more important than any obstacles that we may perceive are blocking some path in our life. And actually, we're going to be remembered better if we looked at those obstacles, we back off of them and look for other opportunities rather than getting angry, rather than punching those obstacles in the face and pursuing them in a way that may be viewed as negative. Living with death in mind, understanding what's important and what's not important. And that's kind of how he ended it. And I wrote the last thing is if our only option, as with Marcus Aurelius, is simply be a good person, practice forgiveness in spite of someone else's greed or lust for power, then that's still a pretty good option. So if I'm just going to live a good life, and if I'm going to be happy not having that $50 million company, and I'm playing board games with my family, having a great time doing it, I'm hopping on this podcast, talking with my brother, having a great time doing it, the actions of the will are what's most important. Like the daily, I'm going to say the daily grind. It's not necessarily the daily grind, the daily decision making that we do. In the end, that's what we're going to be remembered by. That's what's key to ensuring success. Because what is success, right? Success is not necessarily me starting a $50 million company. Success is me coming home at night and having a wife that I can give a hug and a kiss to and be happy with. Having a son that I laugh about. Eli won the game last night. He won. And he won because he made certain decisions within the game that were super smart. And we laugh about that. And last night we were joking around and, oh, that was a great move. You beat me. All of that. Like, that's what happiness is about. That's the purpose of life. And me doing those things is way more important than any of these obstacles that I perceive as hindering me from my growth, when in reality, I can grow in other areas of my life. But doing these little things on a daily basis are what's most important.
Yeah, man. I think it's legacy. Legacy is not what we accomplish, but it's what others accomplish because of us. That's what
Yep.
legacy is, and it not just affects our children, but it affects our children's children. And when we can think about the choices we make now are not just impacting today, it's impacting our children's life, and how we impact and treat our children impacts how they treat their children, our grandchildren. So yeah, man, it's good. I'm glad you got a lot of it from the last section of this book.
Yeah, I got a lot. So I got a lot out of this. Maybe it's only because I've only recently been introduced to Ryan Holiday, and I understand he can be a polarizing figure. Like he is very liberal in his perspectives, and I think that a lot of the negative feedback that he gets on like Goodreads and people who review his stuff is in response to his perspective politically. And although I don't necessarily agree with him politically, the reality is I can take the things that he says and like just because I don't agree with him politically doesn't mean that he can't be a genius in summarizing and categorizing the thoughts of Stoicism and doing it in such a powerful way. I can appreciate that about him as a person. And I can separate the parts that maybe I don't like, or I can separate the parts where I disagree with him. I mean, and that comes down to the same perspective of obstacles. Like I can look at this obstacle, or I can look at Ryan Holiday and can say, "Oh, I'm not going to listen to anything that he has to say because I disagree with him very strongly about this point, this point, and this point." Or I think that he focuses way too much on Elon Musk when he shouldn't. I can look at that and I can say, "Well, I have nothing to learn from this guy because I disagree with him so much." Or I can look at that as an obstacle and I can say, "What are other things that I can learn from what Ryan Holiday has written?" And the reality is, I'm very thankful for the fact, whether it was for greed, maybe the reason why he wrote The Obstacles of the Way is because there were no modern Stoicists. There were no other books that compiled Stoicism in this manner. And maybe I can look at that and say, well, because I think that he's writing this book just because he wants to make money off of people who read it. Well, I can still learn from it. You know, I can still gain from that perspective, and I'm very thankful for that. So because of that, I'm really looking forward to Ego is the Enemy. That's the next book in our list, right?
Hmm.
Looking forward to what I'm going to learn, and maybe that book is something that you can share your insights with me more because I've done a lot of sharing this episode and I apologize. But it impacted me in such a way that I feel like I've grown from reading this book, and I'm very thankful that I have this opportunity because success is not necessarily what we think it is in the moment a lot of the time. Like success is not me overcoming this obstacle when in the past I've viewed myself as I can only be successful if I take down this obstacle. When in reality I can be successful in so many other ways in my life. And I got that from this book, so I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah,
Did you have any final
yeah,
thoughts?
but also, yeah, no, that's the purpose of the podcast, though. It's the purpose is to share. And if you like, there's no reason for me to talk. Like, if I mean, I have nothing to add more than what you had said about the obstacles, and the person who is doing the learning. Uh, and I'm not saying I've already learned all this stuff, but I think that that's the purpose of podcasting. When you're passionate about what you're saying, and when something has impacted you so much, you should share that. I mean, I didn't feel like I needed to add anything other than what you had said. And podcasting is about one person talking to one person listening. You know what I mean? Like it's not about me trying to interject what I think about each and everything that's said or each topic that we have. That's the beauty of conversation. And sometimes just listening, on my part, just listening can be more helpful than me opening my mouth because sometimes I just don't have the words to say. And instead of trying to look and sound smart, I think just keeping my mouth shut is the best, the best thing. But to hear you be passionate about what you're learning through this book, like to me, that's the excitement that I get from listening because it has, like you had a lot of personal stories of, of the obstacles that you've overcome. And I think that's, to me, that was brilliant. So thanks for sharing that stuff.
So the next book that we're going to be reading, Ego is the Way. Looking forward to it.
Ego is the
Going to be
enemy.
working on that this week. Ego is the enemy.
Ego is not the
Ego is
way.
not the way. Ego's the obstacle is the way.
Yep.
Which, I guess, from that perspective, our ego could be our obstacle. Which, in a roundabout way, that means the ego is the way.
No, the ego would never be the way.
Yeah.
It could never be the way.
So make sure you find us on our socials at Two Bros Lit. This has been a really good conversation. I'm really glad that we had it.
Good.
Until our next episode.